Taking a movement to fail, there's a huge discussion with should you go to fail or should you not? The answer is sometimes yes, sometimes no. How much muscle do you build in one session? None. Man, my arms are hurting me. Yep, still, because this is something I don't usually do. Heavy bench press after my heavy squats, because heavy low bar squats especially puts a lot of pressure on your arms. So my programming strategy is to do heavy squats, day off, light bench, and then day off, and then deadlift, and then heavy bench press. So the heavy bench press goes before the heavy squats. And today I'm gonna be benching, and I thought, if my arms are feeling okay, maybe I'll attempt my heavy day. If they're not, I'm gonna go straight to my light session and have my heavy day later on this week. My next heavy day, come in for a 205 kilogram. If it's there, that's what I'm gonna go for. But if it's not, I'm gonna go straight to my light session. And I'm gonna teach you how I change direction. So I'm kind of sticking to my program, but this is how I use my training intuition to say, if it's not there for the day, I'm not gonna go for it. So you don't just linearly increase in strength every single week. It just doesn't happen that way because of many reasons. And a few of those reasons are like external stresses. So if you have problems with your relationships or finances or any of that stuff, that will negatively impact your performance in the gym. So that's not what happened with me. My stresses were 2 times squat sessions and my arms are fried. But how you feel is a lie. And the only way you're gonna find out if you are able to perform is to go and try and perform. So that's what I'm gonna try and do. Either way, I'm benching today, but whether it's gonna be a heavy day or a light day, we will see. Warm up as per usual. Arms feeling sore. But that's okay. Sometimes pain doesn't stop you from doing things. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So, if I go over 200, I would like for the colors to be red, red, blue, blue, and the 2.5 kilogram clip. So that's 205. If I do that, I'll do one more set of dumbbells. So my first set of barbell is going to be 75 kilograms. So therefore, I want to be able to press that amount with dumbbells for reps before I touch that amount on the barbell. So that's 37.5 kilogram. I'll do that next. And then the progressions are usually, either 20 kilogram jumps or 25 kilogram jumps. I would say if it's a light day, I'm due for 165. If it's a heavy day, it's 205. So either way, 165 is 2 reds and then a blue in that clip. 205 is 2 reds, 2 blues and that clip. So we've got the color scheme set perfectly. This is a funny thing with injuries and technique. So I think it's gotten out of hand where people say, technique doesn't matter. It's not going to injure you, all these things. Context, context, context. There's not a high-level sport in the world where technique doesn't matter. So whenever you hear people say technique doesn't matter, maybe they're talking about it in a different context. Okay, sure. I want to be able to bench press 220 kilograms again. Right? And you don't do that by randomly choosing a different exercise and not worrying about technique. For me to bench press 220 kilograms at 100 kilograms body weight, technique absolutely matters. The bar path, the position of my shoulders, the placement of the bar in my hands, my leg drive, my brace in my body, all of that is going to make a huge difference to me being able to shift a load that most people in the world can't do. So when it comes to performance, I'm going to say it again. There's not a high-level sport on the planet where technique doesn't matter. So if you ever hear someone say something along the lines of technique doesn't matter, that's just wrong. I've got these face savers on, right? So the problem with the face savers, I don't like them that much because sometimes when you bring the weight down, it hits, and I don't want that happening. But at the same time, if I drop 200 kilograms on my face, that'll kill me. I think that feels like it's a good position. I don't think that'll hit. But, you know, this is my chest. The idea of that is my chest will sit higher than this, but my neck doesn't, right? So that's how it happens. If I drop the weight, I'll drop my chest down and that'll catch it and I'll be safe. That feels uncomfortable on my shoulders. It's a really strange sensation. There's pain from the squats, but it also feels light. So how you feel is a lie. We'll see. We'll go up by 25. Agonist-antagonist pairing or opposing muscle supersets. So doing a bench press, waiting a couple of minutes and doing a pull exercise. But when you're going for a really, really heavy, I don't recommend doing that. So when you're not lifting super heavy weights, it's not really energy consuming to be able to superset, push with pull, push with pull. Like it's a really, you do a push, wait 3 to 4 minutes, and then pull, wait 3 to 4 minutes. And then back to the push, that's like 8 minutes of rest. That's plenty of recovery. But whenever I'm going for a 1 rep max, or coaching someone to do a 1 rep max, I don't recommend you do anything in the rest period. I recommend you sit there and do nothing. Maybe hydrate yourself, and that's as far as it goes. And that's what I'm going to be doing today. So no more supersets for my main movement. So that's 100 kilograms, and I go another 25 jump now, so 125, so that's 2 reds, and then I'll be going 20 kilo jumps from there. Hey, you know what? I had an athlete prove that he was very serious on the weekend. His name's Adam Kostuch. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. He did a 206 kilogram Atlas stone weighing 90 kilograms body weight, world record. He did that yesterday. 206 kilogram Atlas stone. 90 kilograms body weight. Like, that's insane. At the world's strongest man, the last stone is 210. The last, like, it's like 5 stones usually, and then the last one is usually about 210, sometimes less. And a lot of athletes can't get it, and they're the strongest athletes in the world. And they're usually 150 up to 200 kilograms. This guy's 90, and he got 206. I'll tell you when to come in. Stay out. Get ready to come in as I come under. Wait, okay. Now come in. Good. Good. So it was a bit, when you unracked it, when you lifted it, it was a bit, because your thighs weren't on the bar. You're too far behind. So thighs on here and just lift. You let go perfectly though. A lot of people kind of like look past, they just think, oh, I'll just get anyone to unrack and just lift it. That can throw you off. So, I don't know, maybe you can zoom and do special effects or whatever it is, but I'll tell you what happened. When Musti lifted it, the first thing that happened, the bar kind of lifted up and came back. Why did it come back? Because he's trying to be polite and not stand with his crutch over my face so much. You've got to get over the top of it. Right? So he was standing here, lifting like that. You can't guide it out like this. You've got to let gravity take its course. So you've got to have your shoulder over the top of the bar, right? And then stay over the top, but you let go of it perfectly. You've got to gently unload, and then you get out. So very good for first attempt. Let's see how 145 goes. I'm going to explain how I want you to unrack, okay, Musti? And for anyone at home, this is how you have to unrack. If you want your bro to lift as heavy as possible. Okay, so check this out. What do you want to do, especially if you bench press with my technique, is allow the lifter to come back. So, you know, I like to get my head off the bench first. So don't just stand here while your bro's here about to get set up, right? And then all of a sudden they have to put their head in your crutch. Get out of the way, right? So we kind of stand to the side, let them set up, let them come back, right? Now, when they come back, that's kind of like, you got to figure out how long that they take to set up. Pretty immediate. Like once I come here, I set my shoulders in place, and then I'm pretty ready to go. So when I come in, watch me set my shoulders in place, and then you step in, right? So remember how I said don't stand with your crutch over their face? Well, unfortunately, there's a point where you need to. So you have to all get over that, right? So you stay out of the way until it's time. Then you come in, right? Now what you're watching for is this. So you stand thighs on the bar, right? So that's where you're keeping the barbell in line. So it's like a deadlift. You want the barbell to be in line with your midfoot. Don't try and be too polite and lift it out here. That's weak. You're not going to be able to help them that much. So you want to come close, right? So keep the bar in line with your center of your base of support, or in line with your midfoot. Okay, so here, that's strong. Now, get over the top of the bar. So your shoulder, so your arm is straight down. Don't lean back here. Because if you're leaning back here, my shoulder's this way. The moment I lift, it's just going to pull it back. You don't want to pull it back. You want to help me guide it out, right? So you precisely lift gently. If you lift it too much, I'm trying to keep my shoulders back. If you lift it too much, you're going to take my shoulders into protraction. You don't want that. So you want to allow me to maintain that position, and you're only lifting it enough to clear the rack. The rack here on these competition racks are about an inch high. So you've just got to lift it literally 1 inch. 1 inch, guide it to directly in line with my shoulders, and then unload. And that's how you unrack for a bench press. Not bad, except your thighs weren't on the bar. You're too far back. Yeah, so he had his thighs all the way back here. Get your thighs on the bar. You know who the best unracker is for me? Well, my brother, he's very good, but he's not here. But Dinny J, she's a 50 kilo, she's very strong, but she's 52 kilograms. And she's so strong and precise with the unrack. You know, you don't have to be strong. And then I'll tell you what's funny. People say, what are you going to do if you miss the weight? You know what? I attempted a 200 kilogram bench press, got the first rep, came down for the second, and I missed. And she comes in, grabs it, and unracks it. Or helped it off my chest. Okay, so she's not lifting 200 kilograms. Like, I'm lifting a large portion of it. It's just the bit that I can't lift. Right? So you don't need to be super, super strong to be a great spotter. Right? You know, she can deadlift 160 kilograms, but she's not even deadlifting that much. She's probably, when she picked it up off my chest, maybe she's picking up 60 kilograms of it, and I've got the remainder, right? So you don't have to be super strong to be a good unracker. You just need to be precise. I've come to realize that my arms are not super happy with the max out today, and I've made the decision that today is going to be my light day. So that means 165. You know, 165 for a set of 10. My best in the last, well, since I've been 40, so 3 years, is 160 for 10. Right, so last week I did 2 sets of 10 at 160. Maybe I had an 11th rep, so I feel kind of strong. 165 for 10 would be like, not a PB because I've done more than that when I was heavier, but for this body weight, it's a PB. It's the most I've done at 100 kilograms body weight, and the most I've done over the age of 40. So, you know, if I don't get 10, I'm not going to be, who am I kidding? Of course I'm going to be sad. Of course I was pretending, you know, no big deal. Of course I'm going to be upset. But yeah, if I do get 10, I'm going to be very happy. Yeah, time to switch on. Interesting. It's pretty high up on my chest. Maybe too high. Well, we adjusted the camera anyway. We adjusted the camera just in case, but I think it's stronger if I tuck a little bit lower. So when it's too high on the chest, so that's another cue. Instead of saying tuck the elbows, is hit lower on the chest. So that's me hitting high on the chest. When I hit lower on the chest, that's tucking the elbows further to be able to do that. 8 reps. There was a rep in reserve, but we know 9 reps doesn't count. That's okay. Of course I'm sad, but if I got 165 for 10, I think I had 9 for sure. I know I had 9. And you'd probably look at it and say, I know if I look back on the video, it'll look like, nah, that was easy, you had 10. Maybe, but I don't want to miss a rep. I don't want to miss a rep. I definitely had 9, I know that. But I feel like with me, I'm quite fast, and then all of a sudden, I just have none more. So maybe I had 10. Maybe I psyched myself out of it. You know, carrying on about how sore my arms are and all those terrible excuses. But anyway, whatever, I'll do another set. I'll do another set. Looks pretty good. Look pretty good. Anyway, I'll do another set of 8. Taking a movement to fail, there's a huge discussion with should you go to fail or should you not? The answer is sometimes yes, sometimes no. And my strategy is to vary your proximities to fail. So one of the biggest disadvantages with training to fail is fatigue at compound movements that are fatiguing. So doing a bicep curl to fail, that's not very fatiguing, so don't worry about it. Train it to fail. Tricep extension, hamstring curls, leg extension, isolation movements like that, train them to fail. It's totally fine. You know, another thing that people say is injury. You're not going to injure yourself if you do sets of 10 on bicep curls or tricep extensions or any of those. You're not going to. So when people say injury, not really. But heavy movements like this, you know, squat, bench press, deadlift, training those movements to fail, that can cause injury. It's quite common, but it doesn't mean you should never try and push your limits. And that's the fact of it is, you know, I've been doing this for over 20 years, so I kind of know my limitations. I know I had the 9th rep, but I don't want to just get 9 reps. I'd rather, like 9 reps and it's really, really hard, and then I don't have energy. So this is a biggest reason why I usually recommend not going to fail on your big compound movements is energy for another set. So multiple sets and a high quality session is more important than going all out for one set and then you're negatively impacted for the remainder of the session, right? But it's all within reason. If I had 10 in me and I was guaranteed 10, I would have gone for it. If you said to me, if you get 10 now, that's going to be your limit and you won't be able to press more, I would have said, yeah, that's worth it for me. Even if the last rep was a grinder, that's worth it for me. So going to fail every now and then, you know, or you know, maxing out or testing your limits is very beneficial for learning. How much muscle do you build in one session? None, right? It's the accumulation of sessions over the months and years that builds your muscle and strength, not just one session. So if I have, you know, one really great session, yeah, okay, big deal. You know, you've got to repeat that. Or if you have one terrible session, same thing, big deal, no problem. As long as you learn from it. So because I didn't go to fail and there was repetitions in reserve, now I'm able to do another set. And I'm sure that the next set of 8 will be equally as, I don't want to say easy because it wasn't easy, but you know what I mean, comfortable. Yeah, that was comfortable. It was a nicer feeling knowing that I was only going for 8 reps, you know, and I had it. You know what I mean? Still pretty heavy. Smooth, smooth. Could have done 9 for sure, maybe not 10. I call that RP 8.5. RP 8 means you got 2 reps in reserve, and I'm not entirely confident that there was 2 reps in reserve. So 8.5 means there was 1.5 reps in reserve. And when it comes to lifting weights, we round down. So you don't do 9.5 reps, you do 9. You don't do 9.9 reps, you do 9. What's next? Seated dumbbell shoulder press. So this is a strength session, right? So the difference between a strength session and a bodybuilding session is I'm not targeting muscles. Yeah, of course, I want muscles to work and I want muscles to grow, but I'm targeting movements. So that's the emphasis of my session. So people say things like pec day, delt day, lat day, quad day. But for strength athlete, it's press day. So I want to strengthen my pressing muscles. So what are the pressing muscles? Okay, there's a lot of little ancillary muscles. I'm not going to talk about those. But the main pressing muscles are, of course, the pecs, the deltoids, mainly the front of the deltoids, and the triceps. So I'm going to give you my 3 favorite exercises for each of those muscles. So starting with a flat bench press. So even though I said it's movement specific, it's kind of like the best exercise for the chest with movement specific is bench press, right? Not the best pec builder, but in terms of specificity for a powerlifter, bench press powerlifting technique. The best exercise for shoulder pressing strength, in my opinion, is a seated dumbbell shoulder press, which is what my next exercise is going to be. Now, if you've heard me talk about junk volume and exercise redundancy, what I want to be doing is hitting joint angles and ranges of motion that I neglected in my main movement. So whenever I start with a barbell press, I'm using a pronated grip. You don't have much choice. I mean, you can do a supinated grip, but some people do it, whatever, I don't, and it's not a very common thing. So you don't have a huge amount of choice, but to do pronated when you do the barbell. So therefore, when I do a dumbbell, I'm going to utilize the option of using variation. Right? So the dumbbells kind of move freely. So why would I want to hold them in a position that I'm holding? I've got no choice to hold it in a barbell press. And I'll tell you the funniest thing as well. When you do hold a barbell press, you're teaching your lifter to tuck the elbows, which if the hands followed what the elbows would do, that's what would happen to the hands. So even with a barbell, you're trying to use a neutral grip, but you can't because you're locked into the pronated position because the barbell won't allow it. So when you have the option with the dumbbells, use variation. I'm not saying pronated dumbbell presses are bad. I'm just saying I've just done pronated grip with my bench press. So why not utilize a different joint angle? Right? So we go bench press for the chest component. Seated dumbbell shoulder press for the shoulder component with a neutral grip. What's better out of barbell and dumbbells when it comes to shoulder strength? Barbell's pretty cool as well. But especially if you do like standing barbell press, which I love. The idea that you're standing consumes energy. It's important for strength competition. So if you're a strongman, you need to be able to have strength in the standing position. And you need to practice it, right? But for me as a powerlifter, to improve my bench press, I don't need to be standing at all. So seated dumbbell shoulder press allows me to stabilize my body and lock myself into position so I can really focus on the shoulder pressing and not have to worry about bracing my core and balancing as I would with a standing press. Standing press is a great exercise, but objectively, to complement my bench press as a powerlifter, seated dumbbell shoulder press is preferred. And then what's the last pressing muscle? You've got your triceps. So this is an interesting one. A lot of people would think you've just slammed your triceps with your bench press and your shoulder press. They're 2 big compound pressing exercises. Yes, you have slammed your triceps. However, triceps are 3 heads. Of those 3 heads, 2 of them, okay, they're the medial and lateral heads of the triceps. They cross one joint, so they're only responsible for elbow joint extension. The 3rd head is the long head of the tricep, crosses the shoulder joint as well. So they're responsible for elbow extension and shoulder extension. Now here's the thing. When I'm doing a bench press, I'm doing shoulder flexion with elbow extension, which is 2 conflicting actions of that muscle. So therefore, the long head of the triceps don't get targeted as well when you're doing compound pressing exercises. So if you want complete tricep development, you should include isolation exercises. So I'm going to show you my favorite tricep isolation exercise, which is going to be an easy bar skull press. And those are going to be my 3 exercises that I do. They're the most bang for your buck exercises to develop your pressing strength. And if you want a strong press, put those 3 exercises together and you cannot go wrong. Of course, that's just one day of my pressing. There's another press day during the week, and we choose different muscles altogether. But for this is very, very complete. You should do that. You should do that. if I was a bodybuilder and I wanted to do a chest day, as I said, strength athletes think of movement patterns, bodybuilders think of muscle groups. So if I was to do a chest day as a bodybuilder, I'm going to show you the exercises that I would do. I would start with the bench press, but not the same way that I did it then. Not that it's bad for building muscle, but it's just not as good as a different bench pressing technique. So what I'm going to show you now is the bench press technique, the way that I would do it if my focus was on pec hypertrophy. And what we need to consider is the way that I use a wide grip is to reduce the range of motion so that I can be more efficient and shift more loads. So that's shifting heavy loads. That's when your goal is to, lift as much weight as possible. But that's not the goal as a bodybuilder. The goal of a bodybuilder is to stimulate muscle growth. So I want to stimulate the muscle. I don't care, it's nice to lift heavy as a bodybuilder, but it doesn't matter as much. So what I want to do is use a position that's not as efficient, right? So I'm not going to arch the same way. So when you arch, it's great. It's great for your shoulders, and there should still be some arch, but just not the exaggerated arch you do in a powerlifting competition. You arch enough, so if we understand the pec muscles, where they attach, a large portion of the pecs attached to this bone here. It's called the sternum. So you've got the sternal portion and you've got the clavicular portion, which is attached to your collarbone or your clavicle. So what you want to do to target a muscle is increase tension on the muscle while you're training it, right? So the way to increase tension on the pecs is to pick the sternum angle up, so poke your chest up and pull your shoulder back, right? So that increases tension on the pecs. Right, so that's all I want to be doing when I'm doing a bodybuilding style bench press, is picking up the chest, but not by arching like the exaggerated position that I was in as a powerlifter. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. The next thing I'm going to do is not use such a wide grip. The wide grip reduces the range of motion. Close grip increases too much elbow flexion and elbow extension. So it's a lot of triceps, which takes away a lot of the pecs. So therefore, the Goldilocks, the sweet spot, mid-grip, okay? So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So mid-grip, and then the next thing, if you saw what I did with my feet, I'm bringing them back and pushing the heels down to maximize the arch. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to bring my feet flat. So it's not leg drive. I'm using my feet to stabilize my body. Remember how I told you about the shoulder press? Seated dumbbell shoulder press stabilizes the body to shift heavy loads versus a standing barbell press, which is less stable, so therefore less load, right? So the purpose of the feet here is stability, so that I can really use those pecs as much as possible. So that is what I would use it as an accessory exercise as a powerlifter. It's great because bodybuilding exercises can be used for powerlifters. And actually powerlifting exercises can be used for bodybuilders. But either way, that's how I would bench press if my goal was purely pec hypertrophy. That stimulates more pec growth than the way that I was using as a powerlifter. So that's the difference between how I would bench if my goal was powerlifting versus bodybuilding. Next up is going to be the next pec building exercise. Remember, for strength, I want to focus on pressing. For bodybuilding, I want to focus on the muscle. So now I want to target the muscle fibers in a slightly different way. Incline pec flies. Did you see the angle that I hit there? What you would have noticed is that I didn't take it to full range of motion. Of course, you're not a bad person if you do the full range of motion, but I'm focusing on where there's tension on the muscle. If you think about gravity, there's tension here. So that's the full stretch. Up to about here, there's tension. But then when I bring the hands in here, they're stacked. The load's facing this way, and my pec wants to pull this way. So it's not resisting any tension. So this part here is pretty much useless. So what I try and do, if the goal is hypertrophy or building pec muscles is I keep the load where there's tension placed on the muscle and I just keep it there for the entire set. So it looks like I'm only doing a partial range of motion, but that partial range is where there is tension being placed on the muscle. So that's how I do incline pec fly with the focus of muscle hypertrophy. Next up, well, if the goal is hypertrophy, what we often think about is the division of the pecs, upper, middle, and lower. So technically the bench press, like I've just hit all fibers, right? So the bench press is closer towards, it's pretty much all fibers, but emphasizes kind of the middle and a little bit of the lower. And the incline emphasizes a bit of the upper. Whew. Okay, 2 by 10 on that. Seated dumbbell shoulder press, 50 kilograms, 10 reps, and I like to kind of like just pause it a little bit. If you play it back, or if I looked at it back, I'd probably see the pauses were a little bit rushed, but that's fine. The goal is full stretch, which is a deeper position and a more comfortable position for the shoulders to be in if the handles are neutral. Full stretch, lock, full stretch. So complete stop. Ooh. So there's cable extensions, skull press, overhead rope extensions. There's every single angle. You can do either of these, but I just like an easy bar. That's my favorite, and I've always done it. And some people don't like it. And if you prefer to do another exercise, that's fantastic. Because when you do a tricep extension, a lot of research, there's a lot of discussion on lengthened position and shortened position and which one's better. And apparently the research points to it doesn't really matter so much. So that's why I would choose my most bang for your buck exercise, which is an easy bar skull press.
Training morality?
Training morale, not training morality. Training morale is enjoying what you do. This is a really important part about your long-term success, is liking what you do. So if you see someone, like I used to watch my favorite bodybuilders doing overhead dumbbell extensions, that hurts my shoulders. I freaking hate it. But when I first started, I thought, oh, that's what the best bodybuilders are doing, so you've got to do that. And I always sucked at it. It always hurt my shoulders, and I never got good at it. And it took me a long time to realize there's so many different great tricep exercises, and the best ones are the ones that you enjoy the most. So I found that I just loved the tricep skull crusher, skull press, and because I loved doing it, I applied a lot of effort into those sets, and I got very, very strong at those movements. So that's what I mean by training morale. If all you do is just exercise that you hate because you think it's a good exercise, I promise you there's so many different exercises. I put up a post the other day saying my top 3 exercises for hypertrophy or for pecs, and I'm still getting responses saying, what about the fly? What about the cable? What about the dip? Great exercise, great, yep, all great, all great. Just because I didn't do them all in the one session doesn't mean that they're not great. How many sessions can you do? Sorry, how many exercises can you do in a session? For me, if I was to target one muscle, I'd maximum, like usually it's 2 exercises, but I'd potentially do 3 exercises. More than that, you're fatigued. That's where you talk about things like junk volume. You're just doing sets for the sake of doing more sets, and you're in a fatigue state, so the quality of your work diminishes greatly, and therefore the outcome, all it does is it just contributes to further fatigue that you need to recover from. So there's so many different tools for the job, but you can't do them all in one session. So I still want to really optimize all of my pressing muscles on pressing day. Okay, so now we're going to go to the tricep skull press with the easy bar. Where is it? 2 sets of that. And then my pressing is done. And for my hypertrophy day, we're gonna do some dips. So we have to do dips upstairs because I don't have the dip attachment down here. So let's go upstairs. Where is the dip attachment? Normally not allowed, but it's public holiday. So this is Base Body Studio, women only. But because it's public holiday, no one's here, and that's why we're allowed. Two ways of doing the dips. One is if you are emphasizing more triceps and head up. Of course, your torso will lean forward slightly, but if you want to emphasize more pecs, look down so that your torso can tip forward, and it's equivalent to a decline bench press. So that is one of my favorite exercises for triceps. I've gone pretty heavy. So my triceps are smashed right now. But, so at the end of a session, if I was to do decline, I'd choose higher reps. But if I was to not be as fatigued, that's where you can add weight to your body, and it's a great strength building exercise. But there you have it. There's my 3 exercises that I would use for complete pec hypertrophy whilst avoiding exercise redundancy, as well as exercise redundancy exists with strength training as well. So I'm going to write down exactly what those 2 programs are. One is the ultimate pec builder, and one is the ultimate pressing strength builder. So 2 different programs, both fantastic programs, one with a hypertrophy focus and one with a strength focus. But that was today's session. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe, comment below if you want to see anything new, and I'm going to see you guys next time. Take care, guys.